Imagine a scenario where glory, vengeance, and survival collide amid the scorching sands of Hispania. On one side, Julius Caesar, the man who conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon and brought the Republic to its knees. On the other, the last remnants of a republican ideal, represented by Pompey's sons and their loyal ally, Titus Labienus. A struggle until then marked by ambushes and retreats would culminate in a decisive confrontation, the Battle of Munda. But this story is not limited to a mere power struggle. It involves betrayals, unlikely alliances, acts of desperate courage, and, above all, each character's quest for a prominent place in Roman history. The fields of Munda would serve as the stage where the fate of an empire would be decided, and no one would emerge unscathed. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and activate the bell so you won't miss any of our videos packed with historical curiosities about ancient Rome. The legacy of Pompey, the seed of the revolt. Do you think it all started with Julius Caesar? Wait until you learn about the origin of the chaos that took hold in Hispania. The death of Pompey the Great did not mark the end of his legacy or influence. He had been one of the most powerful and respected men in Rome, conquering territories and accumulating prestige among the Senate and the people. His assassination left an open wound in many Romans who believed in the traditional republic. And it is precisely in those wounds that Gnaeus and Sextus Pompey found the strength to keep fighting. Gnaeus Pompey, the elder son, felt the responsibility to honor the name his father had built over decades of conquests. He wanted not only to avenge his father, but also to prove that the Pompeian spirit still beat strong. Meanwhile, Sextus Pompey, younger and more impetuous, shared the same desire for revenge, but his fervor also came from an almost insatiable thirst for respect. If Caesar had been ruthless, they intended to be even more so. To rally the remnants of the Republican army, the Pompey brothers had an invaluable trump card by their side. Titus Labienus, once Caesar's right-hand man in Gaul. Labienus knew Caesar's tactics like few others, and his defection proved that the civil war was far from over. The combination of family pride, a quest for justice, and an insatiable thirst for vengeance formed an explosive cocktail that threatened Caesar's control over Rome. Caesar's rise to power. Have you ever wondered how Julius Caesar became so unbeatable? Then stay tuned, because this is the starting point to understand the true weight of the Battle of Munda. At 55 years old, Julius Caesar had built his power through unquestionable achievements. He subjugated Gaul and formed a triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus. When that triumvirate fell apart, political tension grew, and Caesar chose the path of confrontation. His famous act of crossing the Rubicon, proclaiming Alea Jacta Est, the die is cast, triggered the civil war that would set the entire republic ablaze. Each of Caesar's victories further solidified his reputation as an invincible general. Yet behind his confident appearance was an exceptional strategist, capable of improvising on the battlefield and inspiring unwavering loyalty in his troops. The clemency he offered to captured enemies also earned him the respect of many Romans, although it wasn't enough to erase the hatred of some irreconcilable adversaries. When Pompey fled and was assassinated in Egypt, Caesar believed that part of the problem had been solved, but Pompey's death did not extinguish the flame of his followers. Thus, while Caesar was consolidating power in Rome, the cry of revolt grew louder in Hispania, and that man, who never backed down from a challenge, was about to set foot on the roads once again, heading toward a war that would truly decide the future of Rome. Are you enjoying this narrative about Rome's destiny? Leave a like now, so we can continue bringing you impactful stories like this one. A new spark, the revolt in Hispania. Do you want to know how a region seemingly under Roman control became the stage for such a dangerous rebellion? Stay with us, and you'll find out. While Caesar was handling affairs in Rome, the southern part of Hispania, also known as Hispania Ulterior, became a stronghold of insurrection. Gnaeus and Sextus Pompey, supported by Labienus, found backing among the local population, who often viewed Caesar as a distant tyrant. Fortifying themselves in strategic cities like Cordoba, they rebuilt entire armies from disenchanted veterans and desperate recruits. The Pompeian influence was on the rise again. Some of the locals feared Caesar's reprisals and preferred to join the rebels, believing that if the Pompeians won, it would guarantee them immunity and even rewards. Others saw in the conflict a chance to free themselves from the increasingly centralized control imposed by Caesar. In no time, Hispania became a powder keg ready to explode. News of skirmishes, lightning attacks, and cities declaring loyalty to Pompey's sons reached Rome as a warning that the civil war was not yet over. With his characteristic determination, Caesar could not allow this center of rebellion to spread. For him, it was essential to crush the revolt before it turned into an uncontrollable blaze, burning away the newly acquired stability. Caesar's lightning march. Do you want to discover how Caesar's impressive speed caught everyone by surprise? Then get ready, because now the real action begins. Determined to personally resolve the threat, Caesar gathered some of his most loyal legions and embarked on one of the fastest and boldest marches ever recorded. He covered nearly 2,400 kilometers in less than a month, an epic feat for that time. This lightning-fast advance had one clear purpose: to prevent the rebels from strengthening or receiving support from other provinces. The Roman roads, a source of pride in their engineering, served as the stage for a display of discipline. The soldiers advanced tirelessly, even in rain, cold, or scorching heat. They passed through hostile villages, dodged ambushes, and rarely rested. Caesar understood that surprise would be his greatest ally, and indeed, upon reaching Hispania Ulterior, he found the Pompeians unprepared for immediate confrontation. Some local garrisons sympathetic to Pompey felt the full force of Caesar's approach. Rumors spread that although Caesar's troops were exhausted, they still maintained an insatiable hunger for victory. This fear began to undermine the rebels' morale. However, Gnaeus Pompey, Sextus Pompey, and Labienus believed they could turn the tide if they managed to force Caesar to fight under unfavorable conditions, and it was this hope that kept the revolt alive. Have you ever wondered how these events shaped the destiny of an entire empire? Leave your thoughts in the comments about Caesar's bravery in facing so many risks. Pompeian strategies and resilience. Do you want to understand why Labienus's tactics cornered Caesar? Up next, you'll learn how the Pompeians planned to turn the tide. Labienus, experienced like few, understood that an open confrontation with Caesar would be too risky. Instead, he advised the Pompey brothers to adopt siege and guerrilla tactics, leveraging their intimate knowledge of the terrain. They held out in well-fortified cities, preferring to test Caesar's patience. The idea was to wear him down and force him to fight on multiple fronts. Gnaeus Pompey, despite his eagerness to prove his worth, agreed with Labienus's strategy. He understood that their chances would increase if they managed to prolong the campaign, since Caesar could not remain away from Rome for too long without risking political stability. Meanwhile, Sextus Pompey took charge of recruiting and motivating the troops, promoting the idea that what was at stake was not just a family matter, but the very essence of republican freedom. Seeing that the rebels wouldn't deliver a decisive battle immediately, Caesar began attacking the Pompeian strongholds one by one. He forced surrenders and with each victory eroded the enemy's confidence. Yet the Pompeians still maintained some control over key cities, keeping the flame of Revolt alive. The stage was set for a great clash, and everyone knew that this confrontation was inevitable. The siege of the fortified cities. Do you believe that Caesar's patience could run out before he achieved victory? Let's see how the siege of each city intensified the tension and hastened the Battle of Munda. Drawing on the experience gained in his campaigns in Gaul and other territories, Caesar put effective siege tactics into practice. He employed mobile towers, circumvallation walls, and psychological intimidation to force his foes to surrender. One example was the siege of Antigua. For weeks, he cut off supplies and launched surgical attacks to wear down the defenders' morale. This strategy worked. When Antigua finally fell, it dealt a tremendous moral blow to the Pompeians, who realized just how determined Caesar was to end the revolt. With the fall of several smaller cities, the rebel forces became increasingly concentrated. The tension was palpable. The further Caesar advanced, the more dangerous the impending confrontation became. However, Caesar's string of successes also concealed a problem. His legions, partly composed of soldiers already stationed in Hispania, included less experienced recruits who were more prone to fear Labienus's ambushes. This mix of battle-hardened veterans and new recruits presented a logistical challenge for Caesar, who needed to maintain the cohesion of his army. And it was in this atmosphere of apprehension that the final battle began to take shape on the horizon. If you're enjoying this roller coaster of a story, leave a like right now so we can keep bringing you exciting content about ancient Rome. The Crossroads at Munda. Was Caesar truly prepared to face Pompey's sons on such unfavorable terrain? Now we reach the point where Rome's destiny would be decided. The rebels retreated to the region of Munda, carefully choosing an elevated position ideal for defense. It was exactly the type of terrain Caesar least wanted to confront. A gentle hill that offered excellent visibility and the potential to surprise the enemy with projectiles. Moreover, the Pompeians knew every inch of that ground, while Caesar had to calculate each step with caution. Gnaeus and Sextus Pompey believed that if they forced Caesar to attack under poor conditions, they could inflict severe casualties on his army. Titus Labienus, with his habitual coolness, positioned the legions in such a way as to create traps and force Caesar to spread his troops. Any misstep could cost Caesar dearly and, by extension, determine the fate of Rome. The very presence of Labienus alongside the Pompeians was a constant reminder that Caesar could not underestimate them. Labienus knew his former commander's maneuvers and was ready to exploit them. Yet Caesar had also transformed over the course of his campaigns. He was bolder than ever and willing to take unimaginable risks to secure the final victory. The Decisive Battle. Are you ready to experience every move of one of the most crucial battles in Rome's history? Then get ready for a breathtaking narrative. In the early hours of March 17th, 45 BC, the field at Munda was shrouded in a light mist, and the tension in the air was palpable. On one side, Caesar was organizing his legions, including the legendary 10th, known for its bravery. On the other, Gnaeus Pompey and Labienus were reinforcing the hill's defenses, ready for the assault. As the sun rose, the standards fluttered, signaling the onset of a foretold carnage. Caesar first tried to provoke the enemy into coming down from the hill, seeking a battle on neutral ground. But Gnaeus and Labienus did not take the bait. Then Caesar took the risk and ordered a full frontal attack. The troops climbed the hill slowly and painfully, under a shower of darts, arrows and stones hurled by the defenders. The brutality of the hand-to-hand combat was such that for several hours neither side seemed to yield. When the morale of his men began to waver, Caesar made an audacious decision. He leaped from his horse, grabbed a shield, and rushed to the front line, fighting side by side with his soldiers. He shouted words of encouragement, reminding them that they were just one step away from ending the civil war. This display of courage ignited the hearts of the legions. The 10th Legion in particular doubled its efforts, carving a path through the Pompeian ranks. At a critical moment, King Bogo's cavalry attacked the enemy's rear, catching Gnaeus and Labienus off guard. Panic set in among the Pompeians. The Battle of Munda took a bloody and decisive turn. Had you known about this twist? If you found this detail surprising, share this video with your friends to spread more incredible stories like this one. The immediate aftermath. Did the defeat of the Pompeians mark the definitive end of the opposition? Discover now how Rome reacted to this overwhelming victory. With the advance of the 10th Legion and the devastating attack on the Pompeian rear, the army of Gnaeus Pompey and Labienus collapsed. Many tried to flee within the walls of Munda, but the chaos was such that few managed to regroup. Labienus, while attempting to reorganize the cavalry, was mortally wounded. His death sealed the demoralization of the rebel troops. With the battlefield littered with bodies and captured standards, the Battle of Munda transformed into an undeniable triumph for Caesar. Approximately 30,000 enemies fell, while casualties on Caesar's side were much lower. The news of the victory spread quickly, reaching Rome as a sign that nothing could now stop the man who reigned supreme over the fate of the Republic. The city of Munda then capitulated. Caesar ensured that his old comrade Labienus was given a burial with honors, despite having fought against him. It was an act that demonstrated his strange mix of clemency and pragmatism. Gnaeus and Sextus Pompey barely managed to escape, but their forces were ruined. With Hispania now under control, Caesar could finally return to Rome to govern without any immediate threats. The final legacy and the ominous foreshadowing. Did the victory at Munda truly guarantee absolute power for Caesar, or was it just another step toward tragedy? Victorious, Caesar returned to Rome as dictator. The Battle of Munda had put an end to the main centers of resistance, effectively making him the most powerful man in the Republic. But ironically, that absolute power made him even more vulnerable to conspiracies that feared the emergence of a monarchy. Despite securing the title of dictator for life, his stance sparked jealousy and fear within the Senate. Many senators believed that he would eventually completely bury the Republican regime. And it was in this atmosphere of tension that on March 15th, 44 BC, almost a year after the Battle of Munda, Caesar was assassinated by a group of conspirators led by Brutus and Cassius. The death of the great general shook Rome and paved the way for new conflicts. In the end, the Battle of Munda was not just a military victory. It marked the peak of Caesar's rise and, at the same time, foreshadowed the tragic end that awaited him. On one hand, it secured his absolute dominion over the Republic. On the other, it sowed the seeds of fear that ultimately led to his downfall. From that point on, the history of Rome would never be the same. The Battle of Munda ended the last great resistance against Caesar, consolidating him at the top of Rome's power structure. But this absolute triumph came at a high price. In just a few months, the greatest Roman general would also become the most illustrious victim of a regime that could not bear to be controlled by a single man. If you enjoyed this journey through time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with your friends. Also, comment on what impressed you most about this narrative. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video about ancient Rome.